Coming up on the program today, we're expanding our garden by multiple square feet by just one bag of compost. And we're going to get our butternut and spaghetti squash planted in a very large bed. All that and more coming up today on the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden. The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener is sponsored in part by, for all your non-GMO, heirloom, organic, vegetable, flowers, and herb seeds, visit dollarseed.com. Sioux Growing Supply, located in Wausau, Wisconsin, focusing on certified leaf compost, an excellent amendment for poor soil, retains moisture and adds nutrients, which equals less watering. Available in Sioux organic seed starting kits, pre-filled trays and pots, bag and bulk. Visit SiouxCompost.com. Don't poison your soil with municipal water. Attach a body, mind, and soil hose and filter. Free shipping exclusively through the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com. Just click on the body, mind, and soil icon. Authentic Haven brand soil conditioner for the home gardener. Easy to brew, 100% organic. Visit ManureTea.com. Welcome to the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener. I'm Joy Baird. Well, we're planting our melons and some of our squash today, our winter squash and our viney melons. And we're expanding, like I said, our growing space by several dozen square feet by just one simple bag of compost. And how we're doing that is, if you're having issues growing squash, and we've kind of faced this in some areas in the past couple of years, use a bag of compost. Now, we're using some certified leaf compost from Sioux's here. You can lay them flat, as you'll see us do in some other planting. But up here on the high end of the garden, this is where it gets the most amount of sunlight, the most amount of heat. So you would want to plant something that thrives in that type of environment. Well, we're going to grow watermelon and cantaloupe. Now, how we're doing this is, we're taking the bag of compost, and each bag of compost here has about 2 cubic feet. We cut the bottom off and nestle it in the ground. We didn't dig the soil up. We just moved some of the mulch back, put it in the soil, or put it on the ground, and then put the mulch back around. This way, it allows the worms and life to go in and out of that bag, and then when it does rain, it can flush through and not have to worry about drainage or flooding the seeds. So I'll demonstrate on this bag here. We're going to put both these bags here. Let's see here. Just kind of move back, make sure I've got kind of a clean area, weed-free area as best I can. All right. So what I'm going to do here is put this back. Now the intention here is, with a lot of these vine crops, you're needing 15 to 40 square feet based on your variety. So it's going to be a very large coverage of area. So what we're going to do, and that's the reason why we decided to go with a bag of compost, is because it's going to have a lot of nutrients in it. It's kind of going to be elevated. It's more like growing in a container, but essentially you're going in a bag. So if you have issues with soil not being the way it needs to be, or nutriently the way it needs to be, this is a great way to go about, whether you're just buying compost or potting soil. You can put this in the ground, or on the ground, even when you don't have soil. You can put this in the backyard, put some seeds in it, and allow it to sprawl out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut the bottom off of this bag. Let me get on this side so I can cut it better. Pull. There we go. Pull this out. And most of the soil stayed in there. Okay, good. Now we'll put that soil back in. So now I'm going to cut the top off here. And I'm going to roll the edges down. And essentially this is just a open top, open bottom container that has a lot of good nutrients in it. There we go. Okay, now I'm just going to take what mulch I have floating around here and kind of build up around the base just to kind of put a seal on it. All right, so now we're going to plant our cantaloupe in this and our honeydew. Typically, you would want to do about 3 seeds in a container like this, but we're going to kind of expand our availability here because we've got good soil and it's going to be a warm bag to grow in. We're going to do 3 seeds of each. We've got honeydew melon and hard honey rock cantaloupe, so we're going to do 3 seeds in each in this bag here. And back there we've got some Saskatchewan watermelon and some crimson sweet watermelon, and we're going to do the same procedure back there. And then we're going to head down to the other end and show a different method of growing in the same type of situation, but with a trellis. So that was one way of going to expand your growing space by using a container or a bag of compost. Whether you have like a garden or not, you can simply put that, as I spoke about, in a backyard and let it sprout out. Another way that if you want it to be more eye-pleasing, this is another way you can do it. We've got the compost here on its side. This has got acorn squash in it. Over there has got sweet dumpling squash in it. And what we've got here is a trellis. And a trellis can be any device that you use to utilize the plants to grow up. Acorn squash, dumpling squash are both viney crops that do climb relatively decent. So what we have here is the side of a baby crib and two sides of a baby crib to extend the arch up high enough, and then 2 bottoms of 2 baby cribs to extend the sides up to make it a triangle here, or an arch, or whatever you want to call this. Now this is really, we put this in a walk path here to utilize the space that we were not able to grow in because of the divisions of our raised beds or raised berms. So you could take this application and simply set it in your yard and not have to turn any soil over at all in order to get some squash or pumpkins or whatever, cucumbers, whatever the case is, to grow up. Now on this side, we did add some wire mesh to allow it to climb up a little easier because of the gaps in the wood here. But another way to utilize the items that you may already have, or you can construct a device of whatever material in order to grow and not have to till, dig, or do anything to the soil. Simply put 2 bags down, cut the tops off, and plant something in it. So now with that application with the trellis, you can use the bags there as a container. Now again, you want to make sure these bags have perforated holes, but again, it doesn't hurt to take a knife or scissors and puncture some holes in the bottom to have adequate draining. Now we're going to use the bags on the side here in our walk path, and we're going to plant some pink banana jumbo squash. Now it's the same procedure as we did in all of the other applications. The only thing is we're not cutting the bottom off of that, just like we didn't cut the bottom off the ones over by the trellis, but we will puncture some holes just for adequate, just for drainage, just a handful, nothing big, just little slits so excess water can get out of it. And then you can cut the whole opening as wide or as small as you want to. One thing you will want to keep in mind is the larger your opening, the more air and sunlight and moisture evaporation that this will occur. So the smaller the slit or the cut, the better off you are. Now you can obviously mulch this with leaves or straw or dry grass clippings or whatever the case may be. Also, if you had a black bag, that also would help in the instance of the melons because they like a lot of heats in the roots. But nevertheless, this will work very well. So I'm just going to take and not make a slit very big, but just big enough for our seeds. There we go. Now that slit's only, a couple inches wide, and we'll go ahead and plant our squash just like we would with the other one. So here is one way to expand your growing area, whether you're maxed out like we are or you have no growing area at all. This is a unique way and really efficient way to utilize bags of compost or potting soil to plant directly in them to get you something that you can harvest at the end of the growing season. Growing in containers is a great way to expand your growing area, whether you have ground to grow in or not. We've got 10, 15 gallon plastic container here that we're going to plant zucchini in. Zucchini is a heat-loving plant that you want to make sure you plant after all chances of frost are over. We're going to use Black Beauty zucchini. It's just a very dark green zucchini. This will reach maturity between 50 and 60 days and will produce, if all goes well and it doesn't get any diseases such as powdery mildew, it'll grow until frost and it'll become very bushy. And that's the advantage of in a container. You can actually move this around to, one, get more sunlight if necessary, and two, if it becomes crowded among other containers, you can expand the growing space by just simply giving it more area. Now, we're going to put 2 seeds in the center of the pot here. We're going to use sand as a mulch, and we'll explain that in a minute. We want to put these about a 1/2 inch deep, so we'll put 2 seeds to make sure one will grow, and then we will wean off the weaker of the one. This is just a ring you can use off a water bottle, off a soda bottle. What we're doing here is I'm using that as a marker for where those seeds are at, because mulch will greatly reduce the amount of watering that will be necessary for this container, because it will allow the soil to retain that moisture instead of allowing it to evaporate out when the sun hits it. So I've just got regular, ordinary sand. So what we're going to do here is, the reason I put that around is so I'm not covering the seed with sand. Once it emerges, then we can pull that out. Use that there. Once the seeds emerge, then I can pull it out and backfill around it with some more sand. So what this has done is, if you go to the beach, it's dry on top, but you dig your hand underneath, that sand is moist. Same concept here. The soil will stay moist because of the sand. The sand will repel the heat and hold the moisture in. Again, when the seeds emerge, I'll remove the ring and then backfill around the seed stalk to hold more moisture in. So growing in containers is a great way to expand your growing space, whether you have ground to grow in or not. Polyculture is the term, the definition of polyculture is the planting of 2 or more plants in a specific area for them to help each other grow better. For example, here's what we're going to do. We've got Black Beauty zucchini, yellow zucchini, Black Beauty zucchini. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take some lemon balm and some basil lemon and plant around these squashes for 2 reasons. Well, 3 really. 1, to get more lemon basil and more lemon balm. 1 is that. 2 is by incorporating the fragrance of lemon, and there's other, you can use basil of whatever fragrance, around these plants, that's going to deter insects from finding these plants, most notably the squash bug and or the squash vine borer beetle moth. If we can incorporate these plants with a fragrance that will deter or confuse those enemy insects, that will greatly enhance the success of our squash by doing such. So I'm just going to plant, sprinkle a few seeds around, work them in. We planted these squash about a week ago, so some of these are coming up. So by incorporating all these together, basically taking one plant and hiding the other plant with it so the bad bugs can't find it, so you can get more of a harvest than they can. So spaghetti squash and butternut squash takes a lot of space to grow. They're a vine crop. Now, certain gardeners will say, oh, you can trellis these items, which I guess you could, but they do exert a lot of weight on the vine to get these up, and they don't have tentacles to grab onto the fencing or the trellis or whatever device you have, so you kind of have to tie them up. So what we're doing here, this is an 80 square foot bed that we've prepared. Now, if you followed us very much, last year we had spaghetti squash in this particular bed. It did okay. We got 6 squashes off of it. We had some powdery mildew, not just only in this bed, but throughout the garden. So what we did after we harvested them, we came in, we took the bed and spaded it, got as many weeds out of it as possible, put some compost down, some certified leaf compost, And then at the fall time last year, we came in and we put several trash can fulls of leaves. I think we had about a foot tall on this. As you can see, we still have a good amount of leaves. Let's see how far I can go down before I hit actual dirt. Okay, so we got, right now we got about 3 inches of leaves in some areas of the bed. And we've not done anything, and as you can see, we've got very few weeds coming up in this bed. Now we do have a few thistles here, nothing major. So what we're going to do here, we're not going to use trellising. Last year we tried the trellis method. It did not work whatsoever. We just spent a lot of energy making putting the trellises together and planting around them. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to take and we're going to come in off the walk paths about 18 inches, and we're going to plant 1, 2, 3, 4 spaghetti squash on this side, 4 butternut squash on that side, with the expectations of them kind of growing together and just having a carpet of squash. Now, true enough, they'll grow over here and grow over there, but that's fine. But we want to get as many packed into this area, but also give them adequate sunlight as much as possible. So we'll start over here, come in here, and with this leaf, with the mulch that we have applied with the leaves, 1, it's holding in the moisture incredibly well, and 2, it's keeping the weeds down. And now keep in mind again, last year, about September, we came in here and we weeded this, and then in October, early November, we mulched it with leaves and haven't disturbed the soil at all, have not spaded this, not exposed any of the microbial life to the oxygen or atmosphere. So there's a lot of life in the soil. So we're going to very gently, or minimal soil disturbance as we plant these. And you don't have to plant these too deep. 1/2 inch deep is what I'm going to. So spaghetti squash is going to be on this side, but it really doesn't matter. It's just for understanding for organization here. So I'm just going to take my shovel, 1/2 inch deep, make a little slit there. That's all I'm doing. I'm not flipping the soil out and to put it back in. I'm going to put 2 seeds in here. And we put 2 seeds in a lot of planting applications with the intentions of at least 1 germinating. Most times both seeds will germinate, and we'll go ahead and cut 1 off and allow 1 to grow in that area. If you leave both of them in there, they're going to compete for nutrients, they're going to compete for energy, and you're going to actually hurt yourself in the long run. But I want to make sure we get at least 1 to germinate. Now, I had very, very minimal amount of soil disturbance, and now that's all done. I'm going to move over here about 18 inches and do the same thing, and we're going to come over and do the same thing with the spaghetti squash, or the butternut squash on that side of the bed as well. So keep in mind, these do need a lot of space to sprawl. You could trellis them, but they do take some assistance from you. And minimal amount of soil disturbance. Leaves on here to retain moisture, keep weeds down, and actually adding a layer of basically like a pillow for this stuff. Whenever the squash begins to form, you're not having that squash set directly on the soil like we had last year, and we actually had damage to a couple of the squash because they were sitting directly on the soil and bugs were getting up underneath there. So keep that all in mind when it comes time to plant your vining winter squash. Thanks for watching. Join us again next time for more organic gardening and food preserving. I'm Joy Barrett, and this has been the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener.
For more information, please visit thewwisconsinvegetablegardener.com.